It's another miserable weekend in the UK. No surprise there, it's miserable outside, but it means I get to work on my bikes. I've got the CX there where I left it in the last video. I haven't done anything to it since then, so I'm going to work on that later on today. But first, the Suzuki. So I've got a few people asking me, where is it? Why can't we see you riding it? Truth is, it's not properly finished yet. A few issues. So I need to sort out the points today. That's not really an issue. That's a pretty straightforward job. You need to get it right, but it's pretty straightforward. Then I need to carb sync it. So I've got the synchronizers here ready to go. But the fuel tank, when I got the bike, the previous person, the person that started the project, had beaten in the sides of the tanks and then filled in where the badges were. But if you can see here, everything started bubbling. As soon as I started putting fuel into it, the sides started bubbling out and the paint started flaking. So you might, here you go, you can see it here. Yeah, so fuel was seeping out the sides. So I've just taken this back now, so you can see this little rim here where the badge sits. It's actually leaking from the inside out, so I'm gonna have to put a bit more filler, I think. I'm half tempted to actually weld around it just to put a proper seal, but I'm not sure. You can get tank liners as well, so I might even just put a tank liner in this and hope for the best. But anyway, it needs to be sprayed. As I mentioned in one of the previous videos, I'm going to change the colour of this, so I'm not too fussed with that. I do like the orange and grey combination, but from the side it doesn't look like much. So I've got all the oil out of there and everything now, and I've got a cap that fits where the starter used to go in there, so I just need to put a bolt through that. I've got the same cap on the other end, so I'm going to tighten the bolt, and with these big washers here I can actually tighten the thing and it'll expand as I tighten the screws. So that's one thing sorted. Then I can seal it back up. So let's do that. With that tightened now, nothing's going to go through that at all. And with this gasket here, you can see that this little part here actually has a fold at the gasket, so you don't have to worry about this hole either. That's completely fine. One job done, and on to the next. So more deliveries and more expenses for the bike, so here it is. It's the gear linkage. So on my old one, someone had tried to angle grind that section off there, that little bobble. Okay, so I've had to order the whole thing again, so I can now seal this up and put this on. And now onto this. So that literally slips onto here. And this slips onto there with the right nudge, and that's how the system works. I'm just going to go through this quickly. I'm not going to create a how to set your ignition points video. I might do one day if there's enough demand for it, so if people ask then I will. But just very quickly, this is your ignition system. So if I take this out and take this, so you can see here you've got a top dead center and you've got firing cylinders 2 and 3 here, and you turn it over 180 degrees and you've got top dead center, firing 1 and 4. So this obviously fits on this little notch here, and what you'll see is as your engine turns, this will turn as well, and it will align with this mark here. Oops, trying to do it with my left hand isn't the easiest. So this will align with that there, so you can see this little notch here aligns with that F there. So at this stage now, cylinders 2 and 3 are firing, near enough. So this then corresponds to this. This fits on top of that, nice and snug. Sorry, that way. And then these open and close. When they open and close, they'll send a signal to your ignition coils, which will then send a signal to your spark plugs, which will create the spark. That's it in a nutshell, but there are 3 parts that you need to adjust. So this is an explanation behind all the screws here. Now there are a lot of Phillips screws. These 3 big ones lets you adjust cylinders 1 and 4, which are on this side. These 2 little screws here lets you adjust cylinders 2 and 3, which are on this side. And then these 4 here lets you adjust the gaps on these. So there are 3 different sets of screws that you need to address, essentially. So what I'm going to do is use this. You can use any kind of circuit tester as you wish. This one lights up when there is a circuit, and obviously it doesn't when there isn't. So I've seen people use sort of buzzers and stuff, but this is just a light version. So when you put this on something with a circuit, then it just lights up. So what I'm going to do is put that bit on the negative, so I don't need to hold it, and click this on there, so you can see if I connect it to there, I can see a light coming on. But if I click it onto pistons 1 and 4, then there isn't at the moment, which means that this circuit is closed and that is open. I've just come across a problem, really bad news. It's really going to put a downer on my day. I was taking the carbs off once again. The engine, or the pods, were flooding again, and I couldn't understand why, so I took the carburetor off just to have another look, and this happened. So this is the intake pipe, intake rubber, or the manifold intake pipe, or intake boot, or intake rubber, whatever you want to call it. This is the bit that goes from your carburetor into your manifold. That's the intake. And as I was taking the carburetor off, this came apart, which it shouldn't do really, but understandable. It is nearly 40 years old now, and things do perish. So around here you can see all this dust. That was one day glue, and obviously over 40 years it perishes. So that's completely ruined one boot. I've had a look at the other ones, and actually no, that one as well. If you have a look at that there, you can see, I mean, that's not too bad. It's this inner bit here that you've got to watch out for. These rings are completely gone anyway, these O-rings. To be on the safe side, I'm going to have to buy new ones. This is a culprit. That is actually gone. So they're all heading the same way as this did, and there's absolutely nothing you can do with it apart from buying new ones. They're expensive in comparison to other things, but it's a huge chunk of money to blow out just on 4 little things like this. In the UK, I think it's going to cost me about £120. In the US, what's that, $140, $150 now? So it's an expensive cost just for these little things, but obviously the motorbike won't run without them. So an absolute mess. I'm going to have to order those this week, so I was hoping to be in a lot further position with the Suzuki this week than it's turned out to be. But anyway, another speed bump, so all you can do with them is just go over them and deal with it. So I'm going to leave my video here now. There's nothing more I can do. I might bleed the brakes, so that's all I can do for this week on the bike. So I'm going to leave the video here, and and whilst I wait for the part, I can do other things like the CX over there. So subscribe to see what happens to this. It will be on the road one day, it will, but there are so many things that needs doing to it. It's just one thing after another, so I will definitely get this up and running in the next month. That is an absolute promise. So I'll see you next week.